Section 21 of The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy by Hannah Glasse. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 9, Part 3. For Lent or a Fast Dinner. From To Broil Shrimp, Cod, Salmon, Whiting or Haddock. Flour it and have a quick clear fire. Set your gridiron high. Broil it of a fine brown. Lay it in your dish, and for sauce have good melted butter. Take a lobster, bruise the spawn in the butter, cut the meat small, put all together into the melted butter, make it hot and pour it into your dish or into basins. Garnish with horseradish and lemon. Or oyster sauce made thus. Take half a pint of oysters and simmer them till they are plump. Strain the liquor from them through a sieve, wash the oysters very clean and beard them. Put them in a stew pan and pour the liquor over them, but mind you do not pour the sediment with the liquor. Then add a blade of mace, a quarter of a lemon, a spoonful of anchovy liquor, and a little bit of horseradish, a little butter rolled in flour, half a pound of butter nicely melted. Boil it up gently for 10 minutes. Then take out the horseradish, the mace and lemon. Squeeze the juice of the lemon into the sauce, toss it up a little, then put it into your boats or basins. Mussel sauce made thus is very good, only you must put them into a stew pan and cover them close. First open and search that there be no crabs under the tongue. Or a spoonful of walnut pickle in the butter makes the sauce good, or a spoonful of either sort of ketchup or horseradish sauce. Melt your butter, scrape a good deal of horseradish fine, put it into the melted butter, grate half a nutmeg, beat up the yolk of an egg with 1 spoonful of cream, pour it into the butter, keep it stirring till it boils, then pour it directly into your basin. To dress little fish. As to all sorts of little fish, such as smelts, roach, etc., they should be fried dry and of a fine brown, and nothing but plain butter. Garnish with lemon. And with all boiled fish, you should put a good deal of salt and horseradish in the water, except mackerel, with which put salt and mint, parsley and fennel, which you must chop to put into the butter, and some love scalded gooseberries with them. And be sure to boil your fish well, but take great care they do not break. To broil mackerel. Clean them, split them down the back, season them with pepper and salt, some mint, parsley and fennel chopped very fine, and flour them. Broil them of a fine light brown. Put them on a dish and strainer. Garnish with parsley. Let your sauce be fennel and butter in a boat. To broil weavers. Gut them and wash them clean. Dry them in a clean cloth. Flour, then broil them, and have melted butter in a cup. They are fine fish, and cut as firm as a sole, but you must take care not to hurt yourself with the 2 sharp bones in the head. To boil a turbot. Lay it in a good deal of salt and water an hour or 2, and if it is not quite sweet, shift your water 5 or 6 times. First put a good deal of salt in the mouth and belly. In the meantime, set on your fish kettle with clean spring water and salt, a little vinegar, and a piece of horseradish. When the water boils, lay the turbot on a fish plate. Put it into the kettle, let it be well boiled, but take great care it is not too much done. When enough, take off the fish kettle, set it before the fire, then carefully lift up the fish plate and set it across the kettle to drain. In the meantime, melt a good deal of fresh butter and bruise in either the spawn of 1 or 2 lobsters and the meat cut small with a spoonful of anchovy liquor. Then give it a boil and pour it into basins. This is the best sauce, but you may make what you please. Lay the fish in the dish. Garnish with scraped horseradish and lemon. To bake a turbot. Take a dish the size of your turbot, rub butter all over it thick. Throw a little salt, a little beaten pepper, and half a large nutmeg, some parsley minced fine, and throw all over. Pour in a pint of white wine. Cut off the head and tail, lay the turbot in the dish, pour another pint of white wine all over, grate the other half of the nutmeg over it, and a little pepper, some salt, and chopped parsley. Lay a piece of butter here and there all over, and throw a little flour all over, and then a good many crumbs of bread. Bake it, and be sure that it is of a fine brown. Then lay it in your dish, stir the sauce in your dish all together, pour it into a saucepan, shake in a little flour, let it boil, then stir in a piece of butter and 2 spoonfuls of ketchup. Let it boil and pour it into basins. Garnish your dish with lemon, and you may add what you fancy to the sauce, as shrimps, anchovies, mushrooms, etc. If a small turbot, half the wine will do. It eats finely thus. Lay it in a dish, skim off all the fat, and pour the rest over it. Let it stand till cold, and it is good with vinegar and a fine dish to set out a cold table. To dress a jowl of pickled salmon. Lay it in fresh water all night, then lay it in a fish plate. Put it into a large stew pan, season it with a little whole pepper, a blade or 2 of mace tied in a coarse muslin rag, a whole onion, a nutmeg bruised, a bundle of sweet herbs and parsley, a little lemon peel. Put to it 3 large spoonfuls of vinegar, a pint of white wine, and a 1/4 of a pound of fresh butter rolled in flour. Cover it close and let it simmer over a slow fire for a 1/4 of an hour. Then carefully take up your salmon and lay it in your dish. Set it over hot water and cover it. In the meantime, let your sauce boil till it is thick and good. Take out the spice, onion, and sweet herbs, and pour it over the fish. Garnish with lemon. To broil salmon. Cut fresh salmon into thick pieces, flour them and broil them. Lay them in your dish and have plain melted butter in a cup, or anchovy and butter. Baked salmon. Take a little piece cut into slices about 1 inch thick. Butter the dish that you would serve it to table on. Lay the slices in the dish, take off the skin, make a forcemeat thus. Take the flesh of an eel, the flesh of a salmon, an equal quantity, beat in a mortar, season it with beaten pepper, salt, nutmeg, 2 or 3 cloves, some parsley, a few mushrooms, a piece of butter, and 10 or a dozen coriander seeds beat fine. Beat all together, boil the crumb of a halfpenny roll in milk, beat up 4 eggs, stir it together till it is thick. Let it cool and mix it well together with the rest. Then mix all together with 4 raw eggs. On every slice lay this forcemeat all over. Pour a very little melted butter over them and a few crumbs of bread. Lay a crust round the edge of the dish and stick oysters round upon it. Bake it in an oven, and when it is of a very fine brown, serve it up. Pour a little plain butter, with a little red wine in it, into the dish, and the juice of a lemon. Or you may bake it in any dish, and when it is enough, lay the slices into another dish. Pour the butter and wine into the dish it was baked in, give it a boil, and pour it into the dish. Garnish with lemon. This is a fine dish. Squeeze the juice of a lemon in. To broil mackerel whole. Cut off the heads, gut them, wash them clean, pull out the roe at the neck end. Boil it in a little water, then bruise it with a spoon. Beat up the yolk of an egg with a little nutmeg, a little lemon peel cut fine, a little thyme. some parsley boiled and chopped fine, a little pepper and salt, a few crumbs of bread. Mix all well together and fill the mackerel. Flour it well and broil it nicely. Let your sauce be plain butter with a little ketchup or walnut pickle. Mackerel à la maître d'hôtel. Take 3 mackerel and wipe them very dry with a clean cloth. Cut them down the back from head to tail, but not open them. Flour them and broil them nicely. Chop a handful of parsley and a handful of green onions very fine. Mix them up with butter and pepper and salt. Put your mackerel in the dish and put the parsley, etc., into the cut in the back, and put them before the fire till the butter is melted. Squeeze the juice of 2 lemons over them and send them up hot. To broil herrings. Scale them, gut them, cut off their heads, wash them clean, dry them in a cloth, flour them and broil them. Lay the fish in the dish, in a boat, plain melted butter and mustard. To fry herrings. Clean them as above, fry them in butter. Have ready a good many onions peeled and cut thin. Fry them of a light brown with the herrings. Lay the herrings in your dish and the onions round, butter and mustard in a cup. You must do them with a quick fire. To make water soakey. Take some of the smallest plaice or flounders you can get, wash them clean, cut the fins close, put them into a stew pan with just enough water to boil them, a little salt and a bunch of parsley. When they are enough, send them to table in a soup dish with the liquor to keep them hot. Have parsley and butter in a cup. To stew eels. Skin, gut and wash them very clean in 6 or 8 waters to wash away all the sand. Then cut them in pieces about as long as your finger. Put just water enough for sauce. Put in a small onion stuck with cloves, a little bundle of sweet herbs, a blade or 2 of mace, and some whole pepper in a thin muslin rag. Cover it close and let them stew very softly. Look at them now and then. Put in a little piece of butter rolled in flour and a little chopped parsley. When you find they are quite tender and well done, take out the onion, spice and sweet herbs. Put in salt enough to season it. Then dish them up with the sauce. To stew eels with broth. Cleanse your eels as above. Put them into a saucepan with a blade or 2 of mace and a crust of bread. Put just water enough to cover them close and let them stew very softly. When they are enough, dish them up with the broth and have a little plain melted butter and parsley in a cup to eat the eels with. The broth will be very good, and it is fit for weakly and consumptive constitutions. To dress a pike. Scale and gut your pike and wash it very clean. Then make a stuffing in the following manner. Take the crumb of a penny loaf, soaked in cream, 1/4 pound of butter, an anchovy chopped fine, a handful of parsley, and a little sweet herbs chopped fine. The liver or roe of the fish bruised, a little lemon peel chopped fine, a little grated nutmeg, some pepper and salt, the yolks of 2 eggs. Mix all together and put it in the belly of your fish. Sew it up and then make it in the form of an S. Rub the yolk of an egg over, grate some nutmeg on it and strew some crumbs of bread on it. Put some butter here and there on it. Put it on an iron plate and bake it or roast it before the fire in a tin oven. For sauce, good anchovies and butter and plain melted butter. Garnish with horseradish and barberries, or you may boil it without the stuffing. To broil haddocks when they are in high season. Scale them, gut and wash them clean. Do not rip open their bellies, but take the guts out with the gills. Dry them in a clean cloth very well. If there be any roe or liver, take it out, but put it in again. Flour them well and have a clear, good fire. Let your gridiron be hot and clean. Lay them on, turn them quick 2 or 3 times for fear of sticking. Then let one side be enough, and turn the other side. When that is done, lay them in a dish, and have plain butter in a cup, or anchovy and butter. They eat finely, salted a day or 2 before you dress them, and hung up to dry, or boiled with egg sauce. Newcastle is a famous place for salted haddocks. They come in barrels and keep a great while. Or you may make a stuffing, the same as for the pike, and broil them. To broil cod sounds. You must first lay them in hot water a few minutes, take them out and rub them well with salt to take off the skin and black dirt, then they will look quite white. Then put them in water and give them a boil. Take them out and flour them well, pepper and salt them, and broil them. When they are enough, lay them in your dish and pour melted butter and mustard into the dish. Broil them whole. To fricassee cod sounds. Clean them very well as above, then cut them into little pretty pieces, boil them tender in milk and water, then throw them into a colander to drain. Pour them into a clean saucepan, season them with a little beaten mace and grated nutmeg, and a very little salt. Pour to them just cream enough for the sauce, and a good piece of butter rolled in flour. Keep shaking your saucepan round all the time, till it is thick enough. Then dish it up and garnish with lemon. To dress salmon or court bouillon. After having washed and made your salmon very clean, score the side pretty deep, that it may take the seasoning. Take 1/4 ounce of mace, 1/4 ounce of cloves, a nutmeg, dry them and beat them fine, 1/4 ounce of black pepper beat fine, and 1 ounce of salt. Lay the salmon in a napkin, season it well with this spice. Cut some lemon peel fine, and parsley, throw all over, and in the notches put about 1 pound of fresh butter rolled in flour. Roll it up tight in the napkin, and bind it about with pack thread. Put it in a fish kettle, just big enough to hold it. Pour in 1 quart of white wine, 1 quart of vinegar, and as much water as will just boil it. Set it over a quick fire, cover it close. When it is enough, which you must judge by the bigness of your salmon, set it over a stove to stew till you are ready. Then have a clean napkin folded in the dish it is to lay in. Turn it out of the napkin it was boiled in on the other napkin. Garnish the dish with a good deal of parsley, crisped before the fire. For sauce, have nothing but plain butter in a cup, or horseradish and vinegar. Serve it up for a first course. To dress salmon à la braise. Take a fine large piece of salmon, or a large salmon trout, make a pudding thus. Take a large eel, make it clean, slit it open, take out the bone, and take all the meat clean from the bone, chop it fine with 2 anchovies, a little lemon peel cut fine, a little pepper, and a grated nutmeg with parsley chopped, and a very little bit of thyme, a few crumbs of bread, the yolk of a hard egg chopped fine. Roll it up in a piece of butter, and put it into the belly of the fish. Sew it up, lay it in an oval stew pan, or a little kettle that will just hold it. Take 1/2 pound of fresh butter, put it into a saucepan. When it is melted, shake in a handful of flour, stir it till it is a little brown, then pour to it a pint of fish broth. Stir it together, pour it to the fish with a bottle of white wine. Season it with salt to your palate. Put some mace, cloves, and whole pepper into a coarse muslin rag. Tie it. Put to the fish an onion and a little bundle of sweet herbs. Cover it close and let it stew very softly over a slow fire. Put in some fresh mushrooms or pickled ones cut small, 1 ounce of truffles and morels cut small. Let them all stew together. When it is enough, take up your salmon carefully, lay it in your dish, and pour the sauce all over. Garnish with scraped horseradish and lemon notched. Serve it up hot. This is a fine dish for a first course. Salmon Encases. Cut your salmon into little pieces, such as will lay rolled in half sheets of paper. Season it with pepper, salt and nutmeg. Butter the inside of the paper well. Fold the paper so as nothing can come out, then lay them on a tin plate to be baked. Pour a little melted butter over the papers, and then crumbs of bread all over them. Do not let your oven be too hot, for fear of burning the paper. A tin oven before the fire does best. When you think they are enough, serve them up just as they are. There will be sauce enough in the papers, or put the salmon in buttered papers only and broil them. To dress flat fish. In dressing all sorts of flat fish, take great care in the boiling of them. Be sure to have them enough, but do not let them be broke. Mind to put a good deal of salt in and horseradish in the water. Let your fish be well drained, and mind to cut the fins off. When you fry them, let them be well drained in a cloth and floured, and fry them of a fine light brown, either in oil or butter. If there be any water in your dish with the boiled fish, take it out with a sponge. As to your fried fish, a coarse cloth is the best thing to drain it on. To dress salt fish. Oldling, which is the best sort of salt fish, lay in water 12 hours, then lay it 12 hours on a board, and then 12 more in water. When you boil it, put it into the water cold. If it is good, it will take about 15 minutes boiling softly. Boil parsnips very tender, scrape them, and put them into a saucepan. Put to them some milk, stir them till thick, then stir in a good piece of butter and a little salt. When they are enough, lay them in a plate, the fish by itself dry, and butter and hard eggs chopped in a basin. As to water cod, that need only be boiled and well skimmed. Scotch haddocks you must lay in water all night. You may boil or broil them. If you broil, you must split them in two. You may garnish your dishes with hard eggs and parsnips and potatoes. To dress lampreys. The best of this sort of fish are taken in the River Severn, and, when they are in season, the fishmongers and others in London have them from Gloucester. But if you are where they are to be had fresh, you may dress them as you please. To fry lampreys. Bleed them and save the blood, then wash them in hot water to take off the slime, and cut them into pieces. Fry them in a little fresh butter, not quite enough. Pour out the fat, put in a little white wine, give the pan a shake round, season it with whole pepper, nutmeg, salt, sweet herbs and a bay leaf, put in a few capers, a good piece of butter rolled up in flour, and the blood. Give the pan a shake round often, and cover them close. When you think they are enough, take them out, strain the sauce, then give them a boil quick. Squeeze in a little lemon and pour over the fish. Garnish with lemon and dress them just what way you fancy. To pitchcock eels. Take a large eel and scour it well with salt to clean off all the slime. Then slit it down the back, take out the bone, and cut it in 3 or 4 pieces. Take the yolk of an egg and put over the inside. Sprinkle crumbs of bread with some sweet herbs and parsley chopped very fine, a little nutmeg grated, and some pepper and salt mixed all together. Then put it on a gridiron over a clear fire. Broil it of a fine light brown. Dish it up and garnish with raw parsley and horseradish, or put a boiled eel in the middle and the pitchcocked round. Garnish as above with anchovy sauce and parsley and butter in a boat. To fry eels. Make them very clean, cut them into pieces, season them with pepper and salt, flour them and fry them in butter. Let your sauce be plain butter melted with the juice of lemon. Be sure they be well drained from the fat before you lay them in the dish. To broil eels. Take a large eel, skin it and make it clean. Open the belly, cut it in 4 pieces. Take the tail end, strip off the flesh, beat it in a mortar, season it with a little beaten mace, a little grated nutmeg, pepper and salt, a little parsley and thyme, a little lemon peel, an equal quantity of crumbs of bread. Roll it in a little piece of butter. Then mix it again with the yolk of an egg, roll it up again, and fill the 3 pieces of belly with it. Cut the skin of the eel, wrap the pieces in, and sew up the skin. Broil them well, have butter and an anchovy for sauce, with the juice of lemon. Or you may turn them round and run a skewer through them, and broil them whole. To farce eels with white sauce. Skin and clean your eels well. Pick off all the flesh clean from the bone, which you must leave whole to the head. Take the flesh, cut it small, and beat it in a mortar. Then take half the quantity of crumbs of bread, beat it with the fish, season it with nutmeg and beaten pepper, an anchovy, a good deal of parsley chopped fine, a few truffles boiled tender in a very little water, chop them fine, put them into the mortar with the liquor and a few mushrooms. Beat it well together, mix in a little cream, then take it out and mix it well together in your hand. Lay it round the bone in the shape of the eel. Lay it on a buttered pan, drudge it well with fine crumbs of bread and bake it. When it is done, lay it carefully in your dish. Have ready half a pint of cream, 1/4 pound of fresh butter. Stir it one way till it is thick. Pour it over your eels and garnish with lemon. To dress eels with brown sauce. Skin and clean a large eel very well. Cut it in pieces, put it into a saucepan or stew pan. Put to it 1/4 pint of water, a bundle of sweet herbs, an onion, some whole pepper, a blade of mace, and a little salt. Cover it close, and when it begins to simmer, put in a gill of red wine, a spoonful of mushroom pickle, a piece of butter as big as a walnut rolled in flour. Cover it close and let it stew till it is enough, which you will know by the eel being very tender. Take up your eel, lay it in a dish, strain your sauce, give it a boil quick, and pour it over your fish. You must make sauce according to the largeness of your eel, more or less. Garnish with lemon. To roast a piece of fresh sturgeon. Get a piece of fresh sturgeon of about 8 or 10 pounds. Let it lay in water and salt 6 or 8 hours, with its scales on. Then fasten it on the spit, and baste it well with butter for 1/4 hour. Then with a little flour, grate a nutmeg all over it, a little mace and pepper beaten fine, and salt thrown over it, and a few sweet herbs dried and powdered fine, and then crumbs of bread. Then keep basting a little and drudging with crumbs of bread, and with what falls from it till it is enough. In the meantime, prepare this sauce. Take a pint of water, an anchovy, a little piece of lemon peel, an onion, a bundle of sweet herbs, mace, cloves, whole pepper, black and white, a little piece of horseradish. Cover it close, let it boil 1/4 hour, then strain it. Put it into the saucepan again, pour in a pint of white wine, about a dozen oysters and the liquor, 2 spoonfuls of ketchup, 2 of walnut pickle, the inside of a crab bruised fine, or lobster, shrimps or prawns, a good piece of butter rolled in flour, a spoonful of mushroom pickle or juice of lemon. Boil it all together. When your fish is enough, lay it in your dish and pour the sauce over it. Garnish with fried toast and lemon. End of section 21.